Hey, good afternoon. This is Shannon Gronich with the Business Acceleration Network, and I am so excited and delighted today to introduce one of my dear friends and mentors and leadership experts. I've had the opportunity over the years to meet some remarkable speakers and teachers and individuals that are focused on leadership development. And one of the things I love about Hugh Ballou is not only his years of experience, but he has a music conductor background, over 40 years as a music conductor. So he brings in such an incredible element to leadership and team development and business development. I've had the opportunity to participate in his leadership symposium more than once. It was one of those where I was like, this is so good, I got to go back. And what he's done for me is helped redefine how to run meetings, totally shifted that. A number of years ago, I was looking at taking over a nonprofit. He helped me avoid some costly possible mistakes. And he really has educated me on team development, community development. And so today, I have a couple of individuals that are in our 6-month prosperity program. They're both have remarkable projects that you want to know about. And when they came to me, they said, you know, we're ready to go to that next level with our board. And Hugh Ballou, you are the one that just has all of this wisdom. So what I'd love to do is turn this over to you. And I know it's going to be a little bit of interactive, so let me know if there's any. I have a couple questions as we go along, but here, let's give Hugh Ballou. This is how we do our round of applause on Zoom. Let's give Hugh a round of applause.
Well, that was an awesome introduction. Okay, anybody get any questions? See you later. No, this is one of my favorite topics. It's teamwork, and there's a whole lot of moving parts here. And there's seven steps to creating a high functioning culture. And in this particular instance, we're focusing on boards of directors. And your board, and we're focusing specifically in this conversation about nonprofit boards. And so the board runs the organization. They're responsible for governance and all the financial oversight. So when you say we're going to spend $1, the board has approved that budget and approved the expenditure. And everything you do, you hire somebody, you make a decision about something significant that the organization's going to do. The board has to be behind it because they are responsible for it. And so we need the board to be an integral part of what we're doing from the very beginning. So underneath all of these points that I'm going to talk about is the leader's ability to lead the organization. John Maxwell, in his 17 irrefutable laws of leadership, he has the law of the lid. The organization can go no further than the leader's ability to lead. So the very first thing any leader needs to do before you get to these 7 steps to building a high-functioning board is to work on yourself. Build your skill to be able to lead the organization, lead the board. In my personal opinion, which I subscribe to in my professional and personal life, is that the people who are successful have a coach, have a mentor. A coach is somebody that helps you with process knowledge, helps you find your blind spots, and helps advise you about your personal growth. A mentor is somebody with subject matter expertise that helps you learn about the topic. And just because you have an expertise in an area doesn't mean you can run the organization. So partnering with people who have that knowledge gets you to the finish line sooner. So underneath these 7 steps, I'm going to give you the outline for these and then open it up for Q&A at the half hour. Underneath this is your ability to lead. It's embedded in everything that's here. So let me give you the 7 steps. I'm going to give you the 7. You can write them down. I'll paste them into the Zoom feed, the chat box, so you'll have them once I finish. But the 7 steps are: number 1 is strategy. I'm going to just read them down, and then you can capture them again if you miss them when we go through. Competency is 2. Strategy, competency. 3 is role. Strategy, competency, role. Number 4 is culture. Strategy, competency, role, culture. Number 5 is diversity. Number 6 is expectations. And number 7 is covenant. So these are key factors. Without any of these, you're compromised. People succeed without these. You'll get there. I can help you get there sooner. So let's unpack these one at a time. Strategy. This is the roadmap. You've got a vision in your head. And I met with a nonprofit here that does amazing work with teenagers who are hooked into substance abuse. And they get funding, government funding and grant funding to provide the assistance they need to break through, break out, and sustain their life without substance abuse. And they don't have a strategy. So people are working extra time, they're not generating the money, and they're not really moving into the place that they want to move. And so we're talking about building that fundamental strategy. So they've been operating for 3 years and are very, very compromised in what they can do because they don't have this anchor document. So I would say to you, if you don't have a strategy, you shouldn't have an organization. It's irresponsible leadership for us to try to do something without a written strategic plan. Then people say, I have a business plan. That's great. That's a funding document. A strategic plan is a plan of operation. It's like having spent 40 years as a musical conductor, we have a musical score. The orchestra, the choir, they sit down, they're ready to go. They know what to do. Now I make it happen. The strategy is your container for creativity. If you've got this roadmap, then and only then can you be creative. So this is your roadmap. It's where you want to be in very simple terms. It's where you want to be and how you're going to get there. It's all the tactics. We must have the strategy where we're going to go, the objectives. This is an objective. Then we do the tactics. We as entrepreneurs, we're all social entrepreneurs. We're running a business. We're running a charity. We're running a church or synagogue. We're entrepreneurs. We're doing something useful for social entrepreneurs, for society. We really need to focus on the process, which is not something that entrepreneurs naturally do. So the fundamental piece is a strategy. Without that, you won't get your funding for your foundations. Without that, your board doesn't know where to be engaged. Number 2 is competency. You want to surround yourself with the best people possible. And in your strategy, you're talking about where you want to go. Here's your market sweet spot. Here's who you serve. Here's your unique value that you bring to the world. It's very clear. Those attract people to you. Those attract funding to you. And here's our measurable outcomes. Those are in your strategy. In order to get there, we need competent people. And they don't all look alike. In the orchestra, you have people that play different instruments. They have very different talents, and they have very different personalities. But they all work together, and it's much better because we have the different kinds of talent. So you recruit for competency, and that's what's defined in the strategy. You need somebody with financial competency. You need somebody with social media competency. You need somebody with presentation competency. So every person in the room, in your board meetings, is number 3. They have a role and responsibility. So they've got a competency. Then you put the competency to work. This is your track. Your track is defined in the strategy. So we're aligned with that strategy. We're not just running around doing things and creating conflict. We're rowing this boat the same direction. So every person that steps in, you say, okay, your role and responsibility are marketing. You're going to help us design and implement marketing strategies that will increase our donor base by 25% each year. Really clear. Increase our attendance at our events by 50%. It's your role is to design and implement, and here's what you're going to accomplish. So number 4, we have in our minds this organization that's a high functioning organization. Well, what makes it high functioning is that we've defined what the culture looks like. And I love going to Disney properties, and you step foot on the property, and everybody there, the person that sweeps the streets, the person that manages the queues and the lines, the the person that scoops your ice cream, they all have a set of guiding principles. Southwest Airlines, you fly Southwest, they regard themselves as being in the hospitality business. They run an airline, but everybody treats you with hospitality. That is a corporate culture. One of the big shortcomings of organizations, in our planning process, we define our core values. And sometimes people can tell me what they are. Very rarely they can't, because we've written them down and we put them away. We feel really good that we've identified things like integrity, honesty, fairness, equity. We put it away. Then it's not part of our culture. What we do in our planning process is to define guiding principles. So there was a school in a remote part of Virginia where I live that does not subscribe to the Commonwealth of Virginia's standardized testing. They think it's dumbing down. They teach children how to learn, and all of their children go to college and they make the honor roll wherever they go to college. And that's pretty much the standard. They teach children to learn at their own pace, in their own way. So they really have a different paradigm of teaching. Their number one guiding principle is we will not accept money from anyone who wants to change how we educate. So that's very clear when they make decisions. What we don't do is to define the culture. What happens is we bring in somebody that's not compatible with our values and our principles, and they disrupt things. So one person that doesn't fit disrupts the whole culture of the team. So we want to make sure we have that piece of the conversation. And that, as I said earlier, is a part of your strategic planning. We've laid down the roadmap, and then each person that comes in accepts that role of responsibility and they fit the culture. It's sometimes better not to have someone in a position until you get the right person than to have the wrong person and them to be disruptive, because that's an ongoing hiccup in the culture. Now, I'm a fan of diversity. You may not have noticed, but I'm an all white guy. All white guys are no longer in charge of everything. In a lot of places, all white guys will mess things up. So it's time to move things around a little bit. And there is richness in divergent thinking. So if you make part of your principles, your guiding principles, is we will look at people who look different than us, who think differently. We have the same principles, the same values, but we might approach things differently. And that is a good thing. Disagreement is a creative tool. As long as we have the principles and we have the strategy we're working on, we want to think outside of the box, and we want to think in creative outcomes. We're not thinking of activities. We want to think about results. So diversity could be age, it could be gender, it could be sexuality, it could be ethnicity, it could be generational. I'm a boomer. Millennials approach life differently. We have similar values, but we approach life differently. Difference in race and difference in culture. All of those, and if we're inclusive in our thinking, then we no longer serve a world that's only one segment. We serve a world in all of our organizations that is diverse. And we need to create inside of our organizations a diversity that reflects the culture that we serve. And so we need to think like the people that we serve. And to do that, we need diversity on our board. People that will help us think in different terms. One of the shortcomings that we do have as leaders is that we've been taught certain ways. We've participated in other organizations that have done things certain ways. Therefore, that's what we adopt. And I want to share with you, you probably know that those ways don't work all the time. Many times we've been taught the wrong thing, and we've seen things that weren't functioning right, and people didn't know how to change them. So the sixth bullet point is expectations. People come on and we assume, because they're in charge of marketing, that they're going to do magic things. Well, they come in, they might have another idea. They're going to review plans and comment on them. We do have boards that I call nodding boards. They come and they nod during a meeting, and they go home and they do nodding. So it's not a productive board. We want an active board that comes to the meeting, having done an assignment that they took on. This is the expectation part. They've done the assignment and they share with others. They get feedback on the assignment. We then have built a collaborative culture because we're all working together. We might have different areas of responsibility, but we are interdependent, not just independent. And so we've shared that with the group, and then we say, by the time we have the next meeting, I will do these things. So to make it very clear, you're going to sit on this board, and you're in charge of marketing. You're going to help us define, evaluate, and implement, and evaluate and revise our marketing plans. It's not just give me some ideas and walk away. It's be an integral part of how we test it, how we evaluate it, how we take it up level at a level so we can take it to the top level where we want it to be. And that's your commitment. Doesn't mean that this person is got to do it all. Doesn't mean they've got to even do it. It means they must help create and implement and oversee that. We tend to dump a lot of the work onto the founder or the nonprofit executive. Sometimes those are the same, or the president. We tend to dump all of that load, and we've been taught that we ought to do things, be willing to do things that we ask other people to do. That's true. The key word there is willing. We don't need to do everything. So every time the leader takes on a job, we're robbing someone who showed up on your board, on your committees. We're robbing them of an opportunity to do something that they want to do, that they're gifted at doing, and the reason they showed up. They want to connect with their passion. So we create this culture of expectations. Now, what happens is the planners and the doers are the same. So we create this strategy. Your board is part of that. Now, if you're just starting a charity, you can have people that say, I want to be on a board, but I'm going to be an advisor first, especially if you haven't filed the documents and built the corporation. You don't really have a board. Really, you have a group of advisors. So you've got a group that can form the board. So you form the strategy. And basically, these people are outlining the work that they're going to do. So the planners and the doers are the same. There's no exception. If you do the plan and you hand it out, you've cut them off at the knees. They're never going to be engaged. A lot of work I do is with boards that want to do more, but there's not a mechanism there to do more. And then the last one, we've defined a culture where people are all leaders. And this is under the umbrella of transformational leadership. Transformational leadership is a culture of high-performing leaders. And what our job is, as the visionary, the founder, the CEO, the president, the nonprofit executive, our job is to influence, empower, and activate leaders in the culture. And very often people don't step up because they don't think they have permission. 2, they don't know exactly what they're supposed to be doing. And 3, they're not sure they want to take a risk. And so part of the planning process is defining the mechanics of what we're going to do and then how we're going to do it together. And so when they come together and they say, here's a team, well, there's 2 documents that we co-create with our board. And if we're starting, it's a good place to have them weigh in on this. The leader's job is to define the vision and articulate it with passion and clarity, the vision and mission of the organization. That's our job. We say what it is and how we're going to do it. We claim that. We send it down to the group. They comment on it, they reflect on it, they digest it. They send it back up with the implementation. This is what I can contribute to making that vision happen. We do not do everything. So we create this culture of transformational leaders who perform at a high level. So there's 2 documents. One, and these are very similar, but they have a little different flavor to them. So when you have your first gathering, we do some visioning. Where do we want this organization to be? This is the precursor to your strategic planning. let's envision why you joined this group and what do you think are the possibilities. And we co-create the future by looking at specific milestones. So in that process and in the strategic planning process, the board members, the future board members, future staff, future committee chairs, the people who are around the table that are the champions, basically we're called the stakeholders. They have a stake in this. We want to give them a stake to have. But we also want to clarify how we work together. This is very rarely done, and if we don't do it, it creates this underlying tension of, well, we don't quite get along because Johnny's not doing what Johnny ought to do. Well, have we had that conversation? Does Johnny think he should be doing something else? We've never had that conversation. So we set up this situation where we have the, quote, elephant in the room. So the first document is a covenant. We want to issue a contract, sign this, it says you're going to be bound by these rules. Well, many times people don't really read all of them. The contracts tend to be a little legalistic. Two, they don't remember it all the time because they read it and filed it. And three, it's a mind document. It's not a heart document. This is the legalese of what I've committed to. A covenant is a personal promise. This is where we live in the nonprofit world. People show up, they contribute their money and their time and their talent because they care about it. Nonprofit boards do not get paid. Nonprofit board members must donate to the organization. That's a ground rule. If they don't donate, then they shouldn't be on the board. And therefore, we want to say to each person at the first meeting, write on a piece of paper the words, I promise. Following I promise, what is your contribution to making this the highest performing board ever? What do you contribute? And let people say, I promise. I promise to show up for meetings. I promise to show up on time. I promise to listen before I talk. I promise to consider options before making decisions. There are lots of things that could come out, and each person makes their own promise, and they're promising to the other people in the room. So you share all the documents, and then you type them up, send them out. The next meeting, you put them up again. I use storyboards. It's a good way to put up different pieces of paper, and each person can write. So we create this document of I promise. The next time, ask people if there are any of those I promises that they cannot agree with. So there's a little, or are there some of these we could combine for strength? So we do that conversation, and then you ask for general consensus. Can we move these from I promise to we promise? And then we've started building this team synergy. And until we build this team synergy, we call this ensemble in music. It's where people are listening and they perform at a higher level because they're personally engaged and they're listening and they're fine-tuning every minute. So we have this covenant which talks about how we relate to each other. The other document is we take those core values and we look at how we incorporate those into decision making. And I gave you the example of we will not accept money. And so that's not how we treat each other. That's how we make decisions at an organization. So there are fundamental things we need to say that guide our decision making. And so there are organizational guiding principles, and there are individual groups that have guiding principles like the board. And so saying how we as a board are going to work and make decisions for the board. We're going to update, revise our plan in 6 months. We're going to look at our systems and our skills and continually upgrade those. The biggest mistake anybody can make is to consider themselves to be an expert. Once you say I'm an expert leader, then you become dangerous because you're closed to the blind spots that we need to uncover, the growth areas we need to nurture, and those chances to take what some people call failure, turn them into learning opportunities and use them to propel the organization forward. So those 7 things are essential in building an organization. Strategy, you must have a strategy or nobody knows where to play or how how fast to play. Competency, you want to surround yourself with the best people, the very best people. Role, everybody knows what they're there for. They know what's expected of them. We don't look like each other. We're bringing divergent thoughts and ideas. We know what the outcomes are supposed to be, and each time we gather, we focus on outcomes. Regular meetings is where we accountability lies, where nurture lies, where collaboration happens. So we have meaningful work. And by the way, you teach the board that work happens between meetings, not at meetings. We report on what we've done, and we define the next steps. We solve problems, and we learn where we can collaborate and work together. We make official decisions on behalf of the organization. And then the seventh one is we define the culture and make a covenant and a set of guiding principles on how we're going to work together with our friends and how we're going to just make decisions together. All of this is supported by the fact that we are becoming the very best leader possible, which I'm 71. I learn new things every day, and I haven't scratched the surface of what there is to learn. And I do have coaches, and I do listen to my coaches, and that helps me see my own blind spots. I must be my best to be able to serve clients at the top level. So I'm always working with somebody. If you look at the most successful people you can think of, athletes, actors, professionals in any field, the ones that are successful have a support system. They have an advisor, and they pay that person money to help them be the best they can be. And then also underneath this, creating really good systems. And I have programs on power-packed meetings. We run bad meetings, and we take the energy away from the team. Shannon calls them magic meetings. So that's part of our leadership upgrade, is we work on ourselves, work on our ability to lead people, and work on the systems that we use in order to make all these things happen. So that's a very top level overview of the things that are essential. And I teach this to clients. I have online programs. I have resources for you to learn from. So Shannon, shall we open it up to questions or comments?
Absolutely. I would love to start with Pradeep. And Pradeep, I'm picking on you, okay?
No problem.
And Pradeep, just for the viewers, do you mind just sharing quickly your project?
Hi, everyone. I'm a social entrepreneur working on a Sahavi project, building a platform for nonprofit organizations to be more accountable and transparent in current world. So that's it's a startup. So it's very important for me to learn about the structure, board creation, and possibilities, and what challenges we'll be facing when we create a board is what I want to learn in this session.
And I also know, just from working with Pradeep closely, Hugh, he has an existing board right now that has helped him get to where he's at, and he's raised, significant amount of money, or at the beginning, and now he's ready to go to that next level, doing the PPM. And that.
He doesn't have an organization, so he really can't have a board.
I'm sorry?
You don't have an organization, so you really don't have a board.
There's a board of advisors, I would believe, but I could be wrong.
He has a corporation.
I have a corporation, a C Corp.
For your business or for your nonprofit?
For a business.
But you don't have an entity for your nonprofit?
No, not yet.
Okay, so he really doesn't have a board there, because you really need an entity to have a board.
Yeah, right now we're focused on the for-profit board, and the for-profit board to help with the capital acquisition, and obviously the reaching the potential.
There's a whole different set of requirements on raising capital, which are compliance things that we don't have in a nonprofit.
That's right. Yeah. So, I like the 7 steps that you mentioned about here. I'm talking about for-profit organization, and in this session, you're probably referring to the one that you, me, and David working together for a foundation operation. So that has no, I mean, it's just an idea yet at this point.
So my question specifically, and I hope it's okay, I'm interjecting here because I remember some of this, Pradeep, was
No.
how do you select the new board? You know, what are the key things? How do you let the old board go gracefully? Do you know what I mean? Like, what's there to make that? And are there people that he should consider carrying over? Are there limits to the number? You know, with in mind, like he's raising multi-million dollars. So I know there's a sophistication that he needs to look for that you're familiar with too, Hugh.
So part of this is the role, responsibility, and expectations. So if they're not meeting expectations, there's a very clear delineation that it's just not working out. And we're afraid to have the conversation, but they know it's not working out. And they don't know how to have that conversation. So we bring it up. Sometimes people are relieved that they don't know how to even approach the conversation. So part of this onboarding that we've talked about, there is, I mean, it's very same thing for a for-profit company, but there's a competency level. And by the way, don't assume what they write on their resume is 100% correct. Do a background check, like with the Reckler Group. Go and you'll find out things that they won't tell you. And that's critical. I would not put anybody on any board without doing the background check and pay for it. You're accepting a liability. So, do you have a rotation in the board term? They rotate every 2-3 years?
It's just been a year now that we have, it's going to be a year on January 31st. So,
but when they sign up, how long do they sign up for?
For 2 years.
All right, so that's in your bylaws.
Yes.
Okay, that's good. So you'll have a natural point where you say thank you for your service. I think if you want to rotate people now, unless they're doing harm, and unless your documents limit the number of board members, you could add extra board members, and the board could vote to increase it. You could bring somebody in. I was at a nonprofit board meeting Monday, and they had 30 people there, and they're going to need those people. And so the board voted to raise the number of board members. And so the board says, "Oh, we're limited by our bylaws." Well, you can change the bylaws. You know, you weigh in on this, and here's the reason we're changing it. But people need to have a role and responsibility. They can't just be around running their lips and criticizing. So it changes the whole context of the board when people have assignments. And the paradigm I mentioned, you don't do work at a board meeting. You do a work session. You do a planning session. Those are work sessions. The board meeting, you report on what you've done in the strategy. You were assigned to do this. You give a report. The board accepts it. They change it, and then you move on to what you're going to do next time. So it's a moving target, and people tend to want to not do anything and come and sit at a board meeting and talk about it and then go home and do nothing. So part of this meeting strategy is to have people come ready to talk about what they've accomplished, and that's what's important. And your board chair should know how to run meetings.
So what are we expecting from the board members? I mean, are they being part of the operations at like overviewing day-to-day operations in a month or 2 months? Or
board stays out of your day-to-day operations. They do not do that. You hire somebody to run it, and that person runs it, or you fire them.
Yes, that's what I expected. So they're just reviewing organization's performance, right?
Well, it's tied to the strategy. You're in charge of marketing. You've agreed to do certain things tied to the strategy. So you report on what you've done in your channel.
Yeah.
You know, and then you comment on what other people are doing. So have you written a strategic plan for this business?
Yes.
Okay. In the plan, it says, here's what we're going to do. And every board person should have an action plan tied to those major accomplishments, those objectives, those annual goals.
So one of the things, Hugh, and then I know I want to give Judy some time too, and one of the things, Hugh, that we had talked about was surrounding himself with individuals that will help him with capital acquisition. Can you talk about that as far as with the board, or what to look for, and then what is there's a number, and I know that you're incredible at this at the symposium. Hugh does this exercise where he shows you how to get consensus, and how consensus is creating a group consensus from the board was pretty powerful. I couldn't believe it, Hugh. I'm like, really? So do you have any numbers or caps? I mean, I've seen people do things with 40 people, and ugh.
I had 125 last week. And I went to Michigan. That was the wrong month to go to Michigan. Radeep, that's for the board to help create their own expectations. And you've got your vision. You say, we're raising X dollars, and we need to raise it in the next 12 months. How will we do it? And then you shut up. And then you should have a board up to say, action plan, 1, 2, 3, 4. What's the first thing we're going to do? And then who will do it? And don't put your name on any of these. Right? And then when will you do it? And so just say, we need to raise this money. How will we do it? Now, when they came in, defining their role and responsibility, part of that should be raising money. So that's the place that you define what they're supposed to do. If you want them on the board to raise money, then that's their duty. Now, not everybody can raise money, and we need people who are going to raise money to do some of the. You need a secretary, you need a treasurer, you need some introverts that are really good with the details, who really hate making presentations or talking to people. So not everybody on your board is going to be productive in that. Now, the bottom line is, you are the primary presenter. People fund you. The board members will introduce you. So the primary funding will not come to them. It'll come because of the relationship they have. It's a trusted relationship, and then you're the person that they're going to fund. They're not funding the plan, they're funding you. They believe in you, and it's going to happen. So you are front and center in all of the presentations. You can't delegate that. Your board is active in introducing to people. So they could say, we'll introduce you to 2 people a month. You got 10 people, that's a lot of people for you to talk to.
Right.
Your job is to get in front of new people every day. Tell the story.
So I'm just trying to understand what board role is other than capital raise. Is there another role that board can play?
And it depends on the organization. And it's in your strategy. These are the functions that we need. These are the competencies we need, and it's tied to your goals. We need to accomplish this. So what do we need to do? And so if the board is active, did they write the strategy with you?
Yeah.
All right, then they should have defined a place for them to play. They should have defined their role in doing that.
I see.
That's called an action plan. So we're going to meet this goal. How will we do it? And so that could be your next board meeting, is we need to raise money, and one of our goals is to raise this money. How will we do it, and who will do it?
Hey, Hugh.
And then each person there should have a specific role.
Hey, Hugh.
Who's that?
Hey, Steve Rukas. So I think what I'm hearing is it's the mental shift from the CEO looking at the board as reviewers and changing that to no, they're actively participating in the growth of your organization. Is that what I'm hearing you say? That they really should have roles and responsibilities. For example, if they're supposed to be helping you fundraising, they should bring you a certain number of people to be introduced to, kind of like Is that kind of it?
I heard you, but I think, Hugh, did you hear that? Oh, he blacked out for a minute.
You're breaking up. Who's that?
That was Shannon. Did you hear
Somebody's
that?
trying to talk, but we can't hear him.
Steve, I heard Steve. What Steve had mentioned. Steve, you want to try that one more time?
Who just
Yes, I can hear you.
Yeah, I think what I heard there was a shift from the board isn't there to review, but the board is there to actively participate. And you form your board in a way that they're bringing things to the table and you're assigning them tasks. So is that kind of what I'm hearing for you?
Who's talking?
I'm going to go ahead and stop, and you guys just carry on.
Steve, I can hear you, so this is really interesting. Hugh,
Okay.
this is somebody that I'm
So
so
I heard nothing. Can you repeat that? I heard nothing you said.
Okay, so what he said was he heard. This is Steve, by the way.
Let's let him play it again. Steve, let me see if your mic's open for me.
Nate, are you there?
I'm here. So I lost the connection. I didn't hear anything you said.
Okay, raise your hand. Like if I go out, can you just raise your hand, then I'll stop?
I did that.
Okay. So what I was hearing was that you're really saying shift your mindset from the board isn't there to review. The board is actually there to complete tasks in accordance with their competencies, and then you're going there expecting them to bring you something. So I think the example was that maybe one of the person is a fundraiser and their job is to bring you 5 warm leads. And so you would enter into the meeting going, okay, you signed up for that. Where are my 5 leads? Is that kind of what you're saying?
Sort of. You should know before you get to the meeting whether they have 5 leads or not. So we interact between. Steve, I think it's segmented a little, it's very similar to what you're saying. We want the board members to create the strategy, the action plan, and to produce what they can produce. Now, I think everybody on the board is expected to introduce some people to REDEEP for presentations. One of the problems early stage entrepreneurs make is they want other people to make presentations they're not willing to do. And really, it's us with our vision showing up with that board member or individually. So Steve, I think that it's really turning it around from us telling them what to do, from them defining what they're going to do. Is that kind of the context you were headed toward?
Yeah.
Okay. Perfect. Absolutely perfect. Thank you.
Okay. Judy.
I'm here.
Can you share for a moment your project? And I know you had a couple of questions.
Hi, Hugh. Alrighty, well, I've been, because I have a nonprofit project going on, and the nonprofit project going on can't really take wings unless I get the profit-making project going. So I have a board that is not doing as much as they should be doing. But my hardest problem with them is even to assemble them at a meeting. And everybody's busy. They're like busy people. So that's my first thing, is what is a trick to getting everybody, even if I plan it a month out, there's always somebody who's got something else to do. And then from meeting Sharita, I've now changed the name of my company, and that's taken a bit of a step back, but it will be good in the future. So that's what I'm doing.
So board, is this a for-profit or nonprofit board you're speaking of?
This is, the nonprofit has name change.
The board, which entity does the board belong to?
Nonprofit.
So do you have a 501c3?
Correct.
All right, and how many board members?
Including me? No, 6.
Okay. Part of the covenant is they will say, we will show up for meetings.
Okay, so they can't use the busy excuse?
Well, people do what they want to do.
Right.
And you say, we're having a meeting. And part of the covenant would be, we'll miss no more than 2 meetings or we will opt off the board.
Correct.
So there's and statistics show the more you ask of people in a charity, the more they're going to do. So if they signed on, there's a reason. So we don't need to be apologetic for asking them to perform.
Okay.
Who's the board chair?
Up until now, I was taking care of it, but I'm in the learning mode, so I'm now not taking care of it, so I will have to appropriate somebody to do it. And it's a woman. She's agreed, not in those words, but she was going to take over the board.
I think you can use a doodle poll and say, we're going to meet the week of this. Here's some times, and people can weigh in. Then you call it, say, we're going to meet here. If you can't meet it, we're going to bring your calendars to the meeting, and you decide at that meeting when you're going to have the next one.
Okay.
It's best to have a regular day and time. It's a recurring meeting.
Okay.
And I think you would do this covenant thing. And one of the things that you want to put on there is, I promise to attend.
Okay.
And it does no good for people to say, I want to be there and not attend. But all of this role and responsibility, have you written a strategy for this?
Not as you have suggested.
Yeah, so they don't know basically they don't know what to do. So they're not going to do anything until they know what to do.
Right, because we're stuck in the nonprofit's not going to take root until we get the profit making going.
I've heard you say that for years, and I totally disagree.
Okay.
I totally disagree. There's a whole strategy around the nonprofit that could be self-funding and self-fulfilling, and it might even bring energy to the other side.
You know what? I am now believing you after meeting Sharita.
Sharita's my sister. I paid her to talk to you.
I know. Well, you know what? That's like, it's like, oh my God, why didn't somebody tell me this in the beginning? You did, but why didn't I listen?
I can't answer that. I've been in the same boat, so don't hear me as being critical. I like you, and I totally respect what you're doing, and you've stuck with it for a while. So
you know what Walt Disney said? Part of winning is just staying in the game.
He said a lot of good things. He was very counterintuitive. He didn't do anything unless all of his board was against it. I don't recommend that. I don't recommend that. He was pretty hard dude to work with, I bet. Somebody's turned their camera sideways. Oh my, I'm getting seasick. I won't look there. So Judy, the fundamental piece is what I was talking about earlier, is the planners and the doers have to be the same. So
right.
The board creates the work plan, and they create a place for them, and they create the timeline. And in doing that, they create their own accountabilities. It's ridiculous for one person to hold other adults accountable. They have peer-to-peer relationship, and they create the culture of accountability as they go. And so we work it through and build it up, and then it comes together. And they're part of it. They're invested in it. They bought it.
Mm-hmm.
So if we do this in isolation without the board, they will never be engaged. What I would suggest you do, I'm going to be in Vero again on the 20th of February. I have brought in the best presenters I could find, like David Dunworth and Shannon Grunich and a few others. That don't quite, they're all real up here. I always surround myself with people better than me. But one of the paradigms you could do is invite them all to come and hear some of the same things together.
Uh-huh.
And we'll talk about some of these fundamentals. I do find that people do have a paradigm shift there. And you've got the advantage of being able to come because you're a veteran, you can come back.
Right.
Is that the right word? You're grad? What is that you're a former attendee, so you're able to come back, and we can work out something for your board members if you want. But it's going to be, I've upped the grade of these. This is the third one in Vero, and so it'll be different than what you've seen before.
Uh-huh.
Not contrary, it's going to be some of that, and then you get to opt into a monthly support system if you want, where there's ongoing nurture and Q&A, and how do I get over this hump? And what I find in those groups is people resonate with each other. And when I'm working with somebody to solve a problem, other people can learn from it.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes people don't think of those things to ask. So there's great sense in community working together. And when I've been in my leadership coaching sessions with groups, I listen to other people being coached, and I learn a lot about myself. Because I'm bashful. I don't want to talk in front of people.
All right, because I'm tired of being stuck in this spot, and I just
go for it.
Yeah, it's time to go.
I want people to hear your project because it's really remarkable, and I've seen you progress You know, it's
I
not.
am progressing. I am progressing. I'm developing an intergenerational shared site, which means on 3.5 acres of land, we're going to have a 30-bed assisted living center and a 7,000 square foot intergenerational care center, which can handle 40 elders and 30 preschoolers. And it is a big project. And that's it. That's what it started out to be, and that is what it still is.
And she has the property already. She actually has a Montessori teacher background. She's pulling together the most incredible team. Like,
yeah, I got people coming to start the intergenerational program from Ohio State, ready to come and organize it. I've got the social worker to run it. I mean, I just got everything ready, but I just need to find the capital to get it going. I have 2 pro formas of how the whole thing will work. It will make money. So I've done a lot, but I just haven't done everything.
Well, you could start the charity with some funds, some information programs, and some test cases, and do some preliminary things that then would bring credibility to the investors for the for-profit side, because you're going to need both of those to make it work. And
Right.
There's no reason why you couldn't start the other one and cooperate with somebody else's facility with the agreement that it's going to, and ultimately you could do it at more than one facility. You could start something and you can learn there, and then you can transport the next model to the project that you want to be doing. So there's more than one right answer, is what my wife taught me. There's more than one right answer, but it's if you get the group together and you develop the strategy, Judy, that will put a bee in their bonnet. It'll give them a kick in the butt. It'll give them some energy to say, we got to get it done. And then you're holding them back. Then you're guiding it rather than trying to push people. And it's really easier to slow down the fanatic than to raise the dead.
Right.
So I'm going to be in Vero the February 20th. I've got some energy going to that event. If take money out of the equation and we can make it possible for them to attend. If they could get there, let me work on them. We'll help them define how to create a shared vision for that. Or another opportunity we can have to get on a call like this and talk about stuff. So let me know how it can be an ongoing help. There's a lot of pieces to the puzzle. And what most of us try to do, including me, is we try to figure out way too much ourselves when our people around that can help us.
That February 20th is a Tuesday?
All day.
All righty.
You've been twice. This will be different. It'll be some of the same.
Every time. I've been 3 times, and every time it's been different.
And I didn't change the format. No, it's fine. But, we're ready to learn the next thing. And things we heard before, just like today, Judy, things we heard before just didn't sink in. But we're adding different kinds of content that supplements, and you still get a resource book. And I'm developing a continuing learning process.
Okay.
So
yeah, Kimberly, she's been to my workshop too.
I wanted to, Hugh, are we okay to go 5 minutes over if somebody else wanted to?
Absolutely. I'm good. Just, it's up to y'all.
So we still have a little bit more time. And I had one question, but I want to be able to open it up for others. And maybe this is, it's like there are people in our community that are solopreneurs and feeling alone. And I know that board development and stuff like that do you feel, Hugh, that this is something that even a solopreneur can go out and surround themselves with people that will help them grow?
We try to do too much ourselves, and even solopreneurs have teams. It's just informal. And the more we learn to work within a culture of masterminds, of consultants, collaborators, affiliates, alliance partners, the more we can work with others. Solopreneurs are dependent on teams. We just don't know it. And we isolate ourselves and we limit our success and we get blocked. So we really need to be in this conversation and really it's not about serving us, it's serving the vision. And Judy, you have a world-changing vision. So does Radeep. I mean, all of you do. But we tend to think we don't want to ask for money. Well, it's not for you. And part of it is we need to get out of the way. We're the champion for the vision. That's the whole premise for transformational leadership. So it doesn't matter. I find that a third of the people that come to my workshops are solopreneurs running a business. And they learn the same kinds of things that they didn't really think about. And really, we're not supposed to know these things. We've got a different expertise. Creating the system and the enterprise is not part of our expertise, and it doesn't need to be.
Mm-hmm. All right, I believe you now, Hugh.
You're not alone, Judy. There's sometimes where people are like, "I told you that a year ago," and I'm like, "I just wasn't." I
didn't say it. I just said, Judy, I respect your vision. Love you for doing it, and let me know how I can empower you.
Thank you.
Awesome. So I want to open this up. Is there anybody else that has any questions, comments? I see Diane, David.
Who's George? I see George joined us.
George.
Hey, George.
And
Hi.
Diane.
I'm going to unmute you. Hi, George.
Diane looks kind of like a computer. She's I don't know, different.
I have questions. How do you create a team of professionals who need to get paid when you don't have the financial wherewithal to pay them?
Is this a for-profit enterprise?
This is a for-profit enterprise. I've developed it's a Qigong exercise routine for kids where I teach them anatomy and physiology. Mm-hmm. And I want to take it into the school system to prevent the fidgeting, increase attendance, increase paying attention, increase grades, and decrease school violence. And I want to do it for free for 1 semester to charter schools. And then with that data, then take it to private schools, and then I want to charge. So the first year, I want to offer the whole thing for free, but I still need a team of professionals to help me move it forward who need to get paid.
Well, what you've described is a charity. You want to give it away. So in a charity, you can don't put the intellectual property in there. But in the charity, people volunteer. And in a charity, people will help you find the money. In a charity, you can raise grant money to give it away. You still hold the intellectual property personally. You can still have the business that operates differently with a different market. And you create this firewall so that you don't violate any of the IRS rules. So you manage the money channels, you manage the work in different areas. But creating a charity, you could generate money and have a lot of help because people want to serve others.
Perfect.
So where are you, George? I know you're sitting in that.
Okay, I'm based in Florida, but the people that want this the most are in New York City. So technically, I'm going to have to move to New York City for a year because 1 school semester is data collection, and then with that data, then I'm going to go to private school and then do another semester of data collection. And then with all that data collection, then I'm just going to be a for-profit enterprise.
Well, I'm sorry I'm selling, but this February 20th event would help give you the context for all of this. And Shannon's nodding, and so should be presenting.
George, it would be great. You'd love. It changed my world, and each time, like I said, it's the same, but you learn different tools. So especially with team development and the workbook alone. I mean, Hugh, you could be teaching this for a 5-day course, really.
Well, okay. It's going to turn into a year-long support group, but I do have another program called the Unbound Leader, which is a work through yourself course. And it's leadingprofitably.com, and it works for either side. And Radeep, you've already been pointing that's all the nuts and bolts of the things you need to think about. And it's a very robust program. The problem is people sign up for things and they don't want to do the work. And unfortunately, there's a bad, 4-letter word here that we got to recognize. And so we tend to be visionaries, and we want to surround ourselves with tactical people. People that push us to the finish line. If we have to push, there's a problem. Our main job is being visionary. You're the creator. Surround yourself with tacticians who can then push the boat forward.
Okay.
You got the rudder. So the Vero Beach is leadershipvero.com. Leadershipvero.com. You can go there.
Okay. Shannon, you're in Vero Beach?
I'm in Melbourne, Florida, so I'm just a
You're in
little bit
Melbourne.
north of that.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I'm going to be in California for 2 weeks teaching Qigong. I get back on the 20th. So
that's a poor excuse.
Yeah, it's a really poor excuse.
I'm working with Hugh to inspire him to do some sort of paid live feed. So I don't know. I'm probably speaking.
We're going to do that. No, we're going to do that.
Okay. So if you can't go, George, then still connect with what's going on there, because we're working out some of the logistics, and that way you can get a replay. Obviously, being there is the best, because one of the things I love that Hugh does in the beginning is he does an assessment of what are you here for and what did you come to get, and at the end he actually checks and goes through the board of did we accomplish everything that everybody was here to get. So even though he has his curriculum, it's like we get to go there and be very specific. This is what I need.
Okay.
Yes. So hopefully I get to see you soon, George. It's been years.
Yeah, it's been years.
Speaking of tactical, get it done type of people, Steve, I'm going to unmute you for a minute, because he is a local mover and shaker. And as soon as he started talking about that type of person, Steve, I was just seeing you in my mind as that's you, right?
Yeah, I just love the idea of, Hugh, have you ever read the book Traction?
No.
Yeah, it's a wonderful book, and the idea behind the visionary and what he calls the integrator is exactly, you just hit that spot on, right? A lot of the entrepreneurs, especially in the nonprofit world, are very visionary, and they have great passion, which is awesome. And it's rare that you find somebody who has the passion and that tactical side and that integrator side. They have a great vision, but then they're off doing something, and being able to do the visioneer, I call it visioneering. It's like engineering the vision and trying to pull the people together. So yeah, I just thank you for allowing me to set in, and yeah, I loved the time together, because that was a lot of fun. So thank you.
Awesome.
Are you in Florida as well?
I am, yes, sir. I'm in Melbourne. Yeah. And for you entrepreneurs, it's amazing how much energy and heart you guys will put into something. So yeah, don't stop. I love everything I've heard so far. Very cool.
My heritage from my Ballou side is my father's family was from Melbourne.
Ah, okay. I'm originally from New York, and then moved to Virginia, and now in Florida. So I pretty much got the whole East Coast thing working.
I got Virginia covered.
Okay. Oh, is that where you are?
Yeah.
Whereabouts?
Lynchburg.
Okay. I was in Richmond, had offices up in Northern Virginia. So yeah.
I'm in the pretty part.
Yeah.
So Steve and George, I'd love both of you to put in your website into the chat room, so I can at least everybody know. I love, I'm like the master connector here. And I'd love real quick before we hang up to hear from Diane Chasey if she has any questions. Diane, talk about a servant leader, Hugh. That was a name that, Hugh said, rather than calling them volunteers, one of the things that he mentioned that they use is servant leaders. And Diane is, not only does she run her own business, this woman helps run a lot of local organizations here, whether it be fundraising. She runs the Women's Prosperity Network here at the Yacht Club each month. Like, Diane, you are a huge giver to so many organizations. So I know you're on the board, like you're one of those doers, and I see her too. Like you're doing. So thank you.
Thank you much. This was very, very, very helpful for a board that we just recently resurrected. It's a sorority alumni group. So talk about paid volunteers, not, trying to get them to do things. But Hugh, this was great. It inspired me to approach them differently. So I think it'll be more successful. So appreciate it. And thank you, Shannon, for all those wonderful words. Yeah, let's both have an additional 24 hours a day in a week. How's that sound?
Diane, will you share your website since you're on already?
Of course, it's Life Smile
Type
Health.
type it into the chat.
I'll type while you're doing it.
.com.
lifesmilehealth.com. Okay, and we have Steve's is catalystconsulting.co, catalystconsulting.co, and Dr. George is lovechinesemedicine.com. So Hugh, your website and any final things that we can share. Thank you so much for your time, your wisdom, your inspiration, all that you do for me personally and our community at the Business Acceleration Network. And I can't say enough of it. If you're free on November 20th, it will, whether
February.
for-profit or nonprofit, make a huge difference.
February
November
20th.
20th?
February, sorry.
Hey, Hugh, you missed going out to the Brevard Symphony. It is February 4th.
I can't. I'm sorry. I forgot about that. So you're so kind to invite me. I had to change the date from the 6th to the 20th. Just couldn't make the other one happen.
That's
Hugh
okay.
Ballou, Hugh, thank you for that. That was a gracious offer. HughBallou.com is where you'll find about me. And you'll find my online programs and my podcast. BALLOU, right.
Perfect. Any final closing remarks, Hugh?
If you think you can, you think you can't, you're right. I didn't make that up. I think it was Henry Ford or Edison. So Thomas Edison thought he considered failure not part of his thing. He said, I found 9,999 things that didn't work when I was inventing the light bulb. So he like Judy, he stuck with it, but he was successful. So staying with it. And you don't fail, you learn by doing. The people that succeed all the time don't learn much. So consider yourself fortunate. And failure is when you don't get up the last time. So make it happen and love it all the way. So thank you for being here, and let me know how I can help you. And if you help me publicize my February 20 event, I would be most grateful.
Awesome. Thank you, Hugh.
Thanks, Hugh.
Thank you, Hugh.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you.